And Ness Wilson, let's welcome Ness, who's going to and just speak. She leads the UK team, Pioneer team, and let's hear from Ness.
Gerald was our founder, and I believe that the way we can honour his legacy the best is to run our leg of the relay race really well. The cultural landscape through which we will run our leg of the race will be different to the cultural landscape that was that of Gerald's life, but the DNA and the values remain unchanged. And so we are going to run in such a way that the whole relay team of the generations will get the prize at the end. We will not drop the baton in this part of the race. Gerald began a relay race that was shaped by radical thinking and practice of the church as non-institutional and spirit-fueled communities of faith. He talked about and he modeled a community and a gospel of grace, of liberation, and of kingdom impact. He courageously broke through every sacred secular divide, and he created a family for activists and creatives and those who don't always fit into mainstream or conventional church settings. And so we commit ourselves afresh to what Gerald set in motion. It's a testimony to the deep conviction of Gerald's values that they outlast him. They are, of course, values rooted in the ways of Jesus, rooted in the practices of the early church, and then again in the non-conformist streams of church history. But Gerald made them live. Gerald made them compelling, and Gerald made them attractive to those of us who wanted, that's what I want my life and my church community to be like. And so those values, they stand, and they stand strong as we honor the past and as we boldly step forward into Pioneer's future. And we commit ourselves again as Pioneer to those values of being relational, of being missional, of being charismatic and kingdom-orientated. You know, being relational, it's a high bar. It sounds great, but it's actually much easier to be institutional or denominational. Being relational requires much time. Friendships cannot be microwaved. Being relational requires more emotional energy. You can't just walk away from conflict. Being relational requires inconvenience. Doing life in deep community with others. It means that Pioneer churches are real communities in and out of each other's homes. Community households where time is taken to dialogue well and where leadership authority is always relational authority. It's not an easy value to commit to, but it is the best way to do life. It is the best way to do church, the best way to do a network. It's who we are, it's what we do, it's what Gerald showed us, and we will continue. And then being missional is not always easy in our cultural climate, but mission is the lifeblood of the church. If we lose it, we die. And being missional requires our hearts being constantly stirred by God's heart for people, and that's what Gerald showed us. Being missional means never being satisfied with who's around the table because there's always the gaps that you see. Being missional means cultivating a multiplication mindset that takes the gospel into new places and new spaces and creates expressions of church there. So that means we've got Pioneer churches built around allotments in Eastbourne and bikers in Preston and around the local library in Sidcup. Being missional is a disruptive way to live and to think, but it's the best way to do life, it's the best way to do church, and it's the best way to do a network. It's who we are, it's what we do, it's what Gerald showed us, and we will continue. And then being charismatic, it's not always automatic. Far easier to be charismatic in name than in practice. Being charismatic requires faith. Faith to follow the nudges of the Spirit, to pray for healing again. Faith to speak out the prophetic words and pictures that God gives you. Faith to go after the fullness of what God has for us. And sometimes it means dealing with disappointment. But it's a dynamic way to live, and for us as Pioneer, It's the best way to do life. It's the best way to do church. It's the best way to do a network. It's who we are. It's what we do. It's what Gerald showed us, and we will continue. And then being kingdom-orientated is to be big-hearted and to give ourselves away. And Gerald was so good at this. And this value led to the birth of 24/7 and Fusion and Asset and March for Jesus, Magma. It means pioneer churches are so often the catalysts for unity in their localities. And they are churches that will champion other churches. It means that they see the church gathered as a means to equip and resource the church scattered, to be the full-time ministers in every sphere that God has placed them. It means pioneer churches embrace creativity, and we see beauty, God's beauty and God's presence in the whole of creation. It's a big way to live and think, but I believe it's the best way to do life, to do church, and to do a network. It's who we are, it's what we do, it's what Gerald showed us, and we will continue. So Gerald has been promoted to glory, and he's now in the great cloud of witnesses with others that we love. But his legacy lives on in all of us here. And so we are determined to keep pioneering and to run our part of this relay race really well.